And he comments here again back to his letter, "These considerations I offer you reach only so far as this, that you would set bounds and, as it were, temper even your most reasonable sadness." So there's a sense then of someone who is ministering hope, consolation, comfort, that sets a certain limit on grief, even while endorsing and validating that grief. Again, very wise pastoral touch in that. And then finally, although Calvin doesn't do pastoral care, there's many cultural differences, historical differences, situational differences, but you see in his pastoral care, whether it's in his letters or his personal touch, just the essential elements of what pastoral care involves. And I'll flag four. First, there are some times when pastoral counseling just simply teaches. It brings wise advice, it brings perspective to human confusion. People don't know what to do, they're vexed decisions, they feel an uncertainty about how to go forward. And there is a teaching aspect to Christian ministry that Psalm 119, 132, the entry of your words brings light, that teaching aspect can shed light on a person's struggles. Second, there are some times where counseling ministry is admonitory. There's a challenge part that one of the goals of ministry is to help people by piercing through the self-deception, the self-pity, the self-righteousness, and help people to see themselves and their situation the way it really is before God. So there's that admonishment component. But then third, there are some times where counseling is comforting. We saw that comfort expressed in the letter to his friend whose son had died. There's an awareness not just of human sinfulness, but of human sorrows and human suffering. And it's interesting when Calvin introduces the Psalms, his commentary on Psalms, which is Psalms is more about suffering than sin. And he portrays those famous words. Calvin sees the Psalms as a mirror of the soul, and then says that in them, human experience is expressed in the griefs, the sorrows, fears, doubts, hopes, cares, perplexities, in short, all the distracting emotions with which the minds of men are wont to be agitated. And goodness gracious, you're involved in any kind of hands-on, face-to-face ministry, and you deal with people and their troubles, their heartaches, their sorrows, sometimes brought on by their own actions, sometimes imposed by the sins of others against them, sometimes just the plain old pain and suffering of human existence. And that sense of a fundamental comfort that then brings people into the presence of a God who is truly our refuge and our hope in the midst of heartache. And then finally, fourth, whether you're teaching, whether you're admonishing, whether you're comforting, always pastoral ministry, pastoral counseling is filled with the Lord, who discloses himself, his person. God shows his purposes to us, his will is revealed, his promises are made. You see and hear of his actions and what it is that he sets out to do. There's this sense of a personal presence who is powerful to work, and that God is at the very center of Calvin's gracious theology and practice, his gracious ministry, and it is at the very center of biblical counseling. I think of that absolutely central revelation of God on Mount Sinai, where he reveals his essential goodness and mercy towards us. The Lord, gracious and compassionate. He is slow to anger. He abounds with steadfast love and faithfulness. He forgives iniquity, transgression, and sin. And he also reckons justly and accurately with intransigence and willfulness. It's a God of grace and truth who shows himself. And that same Lord revealed on Mount Sinai, you see perfectly incarnate in the life of Jesus Christ. Gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, forgiving, and also reckoning justly. Those qualities that one sees in the revelation of the Lord that walk on the earth in the person of Christ are exactly the qualities that pastoral counsel is meant to embody. One of the marvels of biblical revelation is that that high, glorious revelation on Mount Sinai, those happen to be characteristics of God that are communicable attributes. They are certainly in God uniquely in a degree that it's the blazing sun, but they're also meant to be in our lives as you might call it the 3-watt nightlight version of those blazing realities. That if you're going to do counseling ministry, you ought to be gracious and compassionate and slow to anger and full of steadfast love and faithfulness and forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, and also reckoning justly with intransigence and willfulness. Those also then happen to be the very traits that are the goal of counseling, because the people you work with are also to embody those traits. I mean, you can imagine in a situation of marriage conflict or parent-teen conflict that if any one of the parties involved to some degree starts to manifest graciousness and compassion and all the rest, you've changed the dynamic in a marriage, you've changed the dynamic in a family. And so, the counseling that we do here at Westminster, that we do at CCEF, is not it's not a knockoff of Calvin. Calvin didn't go to some of the places we go, but the fundamental inner structure of it is just so coherent with the kind of vision and lifestyle of ministry that Calvin both taught and embodied. So, thanks.